Hello and welcome back to the X-Files Revisited. We are now on to episode 9 of season 7, Signs and Wonders. Ryan, tell me what kind of signs and wonders this is left on the legacy of the X-Files.
This is a how would I put this? It's a religious episode. Let's just say that it deals with the subject matter that is usually a bona fide kind of sign of quality in terms of Graham and what he likes about the X-Files.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
love the religious rhetoric that we get within the X-Files. It's one of my favourite things, and it's not that I like have any distaste for religion or anything. Like I really don't mind one way or another, which is just it makes it even weirder. Like I fully understand that people have their beliefs, and if it enrich their lives, fantastic. It makes no difference to me. I just I just for some reason find it really off-putting when it's driven at me. Do you know? I don't know why. It's like I put it in the same level as like historical period melodramas. You know, it's just like it's like oh, no, no.
You're not a Sense and Sensibility fan then,
Oh
or
no,
got Pride and
absolutely not.
Prejudice.
No,
Wow, okay.
no,
All right.
no. I have a lot of prejudice for those kind of things.
Pride and Prejudice and zombies.
That I can stomach.
Yeah. Just throw zombies in there and like boom,
Yeah,
turns you around.
mm.
Yeah. Where
Mm.
do you think this sits in the IMDb top 2? Actually, no. I'm gonna do the other one first.
Okay.
So 22 episodes of season 7. Where do you
Right.
think this comes in season 7?
17.
Ooh. Okay. I'm not going to tell you just yet.
Okay. Right, okay.
Now I want you to say where does this come in the top 217 episodes?
157.
Right. So 17 in the season.
Yeah.
And 157
Yes.
overall. I can tell you it is 20 in the season.
Right, okay.
And it is 215.
Out of how many?
Out of 217.
So the third worst
It's
episode.
third from the bottom. Yeah. It's the third worst episode according to IMDb voters.
Okay. Right. I feel like I almost want to throw my score for this episode out just now and just be done with it. Should I throw my score out there, Brian, just now and see if it changes throughout the conversation?
Go on.
4 out of 5.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. This is interesting. This is very interesting.
I like this a lot.
Wow. Okay. I was expecting a 2 at best. I gotta admit, if I'd have put money on it, I'd have said a 2 from you. I'm not saying that's what I'd give it. I'm like, from you, if I'd have put money down on it, I'd have thought you'd have been coming back with a 2.
And I'd be close to putting it another half star up there if you can justify
it. Okay. Yeah. I do not understand that third from bottom at all.
No.
Other than
Tessos Dos Beaches, was it that?
Yeah, that was like it was just an average episode.
Yeah.
It was nothing special, but it was nothing offensive. It was just like, oh, all right, okay. But like worst, seriously, worst. And I feel exactly the same way about this to a large degree. I do think this is better than Tessos Dos Beaches, but we'll get into it.
Hang on, Brian.
Go on.
So you said this is how many episodes are there in season 7?
7. 22.
Yeah. And this was 215. So does that mean that the other 2 episodes are 216 and 217?
That is a good point. Yes.
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 So the 3 episodes in this season are the worst 3 episodes in the X-Files ratings.
Yes. So there's 2 more episodes left to go in this season that take number 215 and 216. Oh, so sorry. So Signs and Wonders is 4th from bottom then, isn't it? Because there's 2.
Oh no, there's 217, and you said it was 215.
Oh, hang on. I've misread. Hang on. I've misread. I looked at the wrong one. My apologies. Good catch though. I'm glad you caught that. That was a very good catch. No, so Signs and Wonders is 208.
Right, okay. It still doesn't deserve to be there.
No, it still doesn't deserve there. So it's 9 from bottom.
Right.
It's in the bottom 10.
Yeah, and there's still another 2 episodes in the bottom 10.
Yes, there's still another 2 episodes to go that are in the bottom 10.
Can I ask you a quick question since you've got your numbers out?
Yeah.
How many episodes from this season are in numbers 200 to 217?
Numbers 200 to 217.
Yeah.
3.
Just 3, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And that's, as a ratio, that's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's not. But also, the 6th Extinction 1 and 2 were in the 120s, and I think they should be in the 200s.
Definitely that. Yeah. They were rotten.
Yeah. That especially part 2. That's definitely in the 200s for me. Like how that is in the 120s, while Signs and Wonders is 208, 9th from bottom, is beyond me. So yeah, but there you go. We got another 2 episodes to go that are in the bottom 3.
That's wow. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Where was I? Yeah, I can't remember. So we'll move on. But this is going to be interesting. So we open up on a stormy night, and we see these medical test results on a piece of paper. We don't quite see what they are in regards to, but a man kind of screws them up, throws them in the bin, and he packs, prays, and loads a gun. And there appears to be a shadowy figure at the window as well. Every time the lightning strikes, it's like, ooh, it's like gothic horror kind of thing. And then there's a rattle from the end of the tail of a rattlesnake. Just the rattle, no snake. So clearly dead, shouldn't be moving at all. And yet it does. It starts rattling. And then the guy kind of like disappears out of there. He heads to his car just outside, and he gets in the car, and he's met with a snake or 2 or 3 or 77. There's the car just suddenly, more and more snakes just seem to kind of pile in, and this guy starts praying out loud, "Help me, Jesus! Help me, Jesus!" But alas, Jesus does not help in this situation.
Nope. No, he does not. As a great man once said, "Snakes, I hate snakes." Something like I kind of like them. Like I'm fascinated by them in general, and whenever they appear en masse in this, I'm like, okay, this is cool. This is interesting. Is this going to be a one-off? Is there going to be more snake action? I'm just like, yeah, fantastic.
Right. Okay.
I was wondering if it was a figment of his imagination.
So I'm guessing you love snakes on a plane then.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything like that whatsoever.
Oh, how good would it have been to have had Mulder in this saying, I've had it with these mother snakes on this.
Yeah, yeah.
So Mulder, this is after the credits. Mulder tells Scully about Mr. Chirp, who is the guy who died in the car.
Yeah.
Thinks he was murdered, but there's no evidence beyond the snake bites. Not even the snakes. They've all done a bunk. Scully thinks it's a religious connection because of the snake's significance in creation and as a depiction of Satan throughout religious literature. So
Yeah, I just went by that. Just went by all that. Snakes.
I mean, it like I take a look at this and like, you know, from their perspective, and I'd be thinking something along the lines of the occult, something like that.
Yeah.
I'm thinking the hand die verletzt with the
Yeah.
teacher with the snake. So
Yeah. So the thing that kind of gets me here is like the lack of evidence.
yeah.
You know, so again, I still wasn't sure if the snakes were like going to be prevalent throughout it, if it was a real thing, if it was in his head. The picture of the body. Do you get to see the body at this point? I can't remember.
There was a photograph, wasn't there?
Yeah, and it just looks disgusting.
Yeah, and he just doesn't look like him at all because
No.
it's obviously everything's so inflamed and blown
Yeah.
up. It's like bleh. You
Yeah.
cease to look like who you were as a result. But yeah, so there's a funeral for Jared, who is the one who died, and the reverend at this blessing community church, whatever it's called. The reverend there tells Gracie he's in a better place now. He's in a better place. That typical kind of pat answer to, you know, death and trying to make someone feel better. Mulder and Scully arrive to ask the reverend some questions. He says he shouldn't point the finger because their church is tolerant and accepting of all beliefs. And that right there is your red flag. Right? Yeah. And that is also where I started to like the episode because of how it deals with this.
You've got the whole religious aspect where you look at it and you see the aspect of that, and it's just I'm like, it's there. Give me more snakes. Just throw them in there. Just give me more snake action. Like yeah, like a little prayer and blah blah. Snakes. Just throw them in there. Get sticky snake action.
Anytime a preacher or a church leader, a Christian church leader, uses the word tolerant, we should be more tolerant, it, to me, is a red flag, because actually nowhere in the Bible except one particular place, and someone can feel free to correct me, but I've only found the one. Nowhere else in the Bible does Jesus ever mention anything about being tolerant. He does, however, say in the book of Revelation that you should not be tolerant of, and he talks about a particular church in this vision, and it's all symbolic of corruption in the church. Don't be tolerant of the lies that are going to come into this church. You should kick them out, this, that, and the other. So whenever anybody says, oh, you know, you're a Christian, you should be tolerant, actually, no, we shouldn't. We should be full of truth and grace. So that's why I certainly by the time we get to the end of this episode, I'm really on board, because that's everything that this episode is dealing with in the shape of this guy here, this reverend, who, if you remember last episode, I said I felt like this episode is even more relevant today than it was back then. I think some of all of this stuff here I probably wouldn't have even noticed in the episode back when it came out, but now I do, and I feel like it's quite pressing when it comes to the modern church and some of the values that are creeping into it, and some of the values that Christian churches are losing for the sake of appearing tolerant. So yeah. Anyway, moving on. Jared used to be a part of a cult called Church of God Signs and Wonders that dealt with snakes. Jared and Gracie left the cult together and were persecuted by them as a result. So this is all coming from the tolerant preacher who says that I shouldn't point the finger, but them. What's your vibe of this guy? Like when at this point, like,
Nah, just another minister, priest, whatever. Just nothing icky at all.
Yeah,
I love the fact that Mulder and Scully have just turned up at this really emotional point and just like hijacked everything. You know, like, I mean, was this just a was this the burial or the was this a has he already been?
Well, it's the funeral, isn't it? Because the coffin's
the
there.
Yeah, I can't remember.
And then,
they've just dealt with it. They've walked outside the church, and like Mulder and Scully are just like, boom. Which I've got a feeling that even Scully would be like, let's just give it an hour.
Yeah, let's hang back a bit. But then I think Mulder's complete lack of respect to us. Yeah. As we saw in Orison, and like some of his kind of attitudes towards religious thought or anything tends to, he starts poking that bear. So Mulder and Scully go to see the church leader, Enoch. This is the Signs and Wonders church leader, Enoch. There's a quote from Isaiah 45:22 out of the front, which are, it's like your typical kind of Bible Belt Southern Baptist Church type deal.
Can we just say, like, they rock up to this church that looks like the kind of church that Leatherface would go to. It's like a dilapidated cabin, like, and even when they open the door, you're like, dear God, I need a tetanus shot to take a step in.
There's no electricity or anything. It's just like,
it's awful.
These guys are, Scully is dismissive of snake charming, particularly how it pertains to the Bible. But Mulder says, rather, like, surprisingly, like communion, it's an interpreter. Oh, it's not this bit necessarily that's surprising. But he says, like communion, it's an interpretation that comes from the same book. Which I personally found to be a very reductive observation that comes from someone who, in all likelihood, has not read that book. It's that thing where it's like anybody can take anything from the Bible and interpret it, and then because it's wacky, then all believers in the Bible get tarred with the same brush. Well, if they can get that from the Bible, it's like, yeah, well, try reading whatever it is they've read that's allowed them to get that. And but
I do like that comment, though, the interpretation comment, just as an idea, and not as in pointing something like wacky out of there, just that it's a
hypothesis that needs to be tested. That's the thing.
Yeah,
it's like to raise it is to then say, okay, well, is that true? So again, it's raising that question that, okay, let's look at that further.
So it's giving you ideas to interpret, not to, like, if you get something good out of it and you think that's a value that you can enrich your life in some way or another, then take it and run with it. But don't read something and go like, you know what, I'm going to kiss snakes. Yeah.
Speaking of which, snakes.
Yeah.
Snakes turn up. They seem to be crawling through the walls and whatnot. They come towards Mulder.
Yeah, like, this guy's got cages and all that in there, but the snakes are just freely roaming the house. Like, is it like dogs in that? Like, he's coming in, Daddy's home, and the snakes come slowly. It's wacky. Like, why have the cages if all the snakes are just running free?
Yeah, I think he likes to test himself, doesn't he? He sees this as a test of faith or righteousness, more to the point. not so
Yeah.
much the faith as it is the
But then
righteousness.
you,
Like if
you find out later on from his daughter that he's been bit loads of times.
yeah.
Oh, great.
Oh man. So, but not to the point of death. That's the thing.
No, I love to the
So
point that he's building up a tolerance. He's building
yeah.
up a tolerance.
Maybe that's his intention all along.
Yeah.
So, so Enoch comes through the door. He talks about the snakes being a test of righteousness. Whose test? God's or yours? Is Mulder's reply, or Scully's? Can't remember which one says it. But and then he says, "I don't think you know whose side you're on." So obviously he sees them as outsiders, intruders, coming into a spiritual battle that they don't understand. They've walked into the middle of a spiritual battle they don't understand. That's his point of view anyway, and he's telling them, look, you have no clue whose side you're on, because if you don't know whose side you're on, then like you're going to end up being on the wrong side. So Mulder tells Scully that Enoch wasn't in Tennessee the night of the murder, but there's got to be someone who knows where Jared was heading with a packed suitcase.
Yeah.
So obviously that takes them to the wake, because they need to find who that person might be. Is there anyone there who can help them? Or at least it will do. So we're at the wake, and Iris, another one of those busybodies.
I'm sure this woman has been a busybody in this type of role and everything.
She's been in the X-Files before. I'm pretty certain of that. I'm sure she's been in the X-Files, and she's played a role of this in this vein before.
Yeah, she's typecast.
Yeah. Oh, big time. And I'm pretty sure she was in Donnie Darko as the teacher that was Sparkle Motion. That teacher. I don't know if you remember that from Donnie Darko. Yeah, she was the one who's trying to get all the kids to do the Sparkle Motion dance troupe and all that, and she's a bit of a busybody in that as well. So
yeah. I remember her from Speed.
Oh yes, of course, yeah.
But I'm sure like there's some other thing that's in my head where she looks identical to this, and she's like a a kind of religious housewife type thing.
Right.
I can't picture what it is.
She's just got that face. You have to cast her in that role. So Iris tells Reverend that Jared called for Gracie at 2 a.m. the night he died, raving about the devil. So she didn't let him speak to her. Because,
It's 2 in the morning.
Yeah, it's 2 in the morning. It's like, go and sleep it off, mate. It's like, so we go from there to Enoch's church, and he's quoting from Revelation 3, and we're in. Now this is the bit where I'm like, I don't know if I like where they're going here, because it's your stereotypical shaky Southern preacher who's like all theatrics and quoting Revelation and go on.
I loved it because I loved the interplay between the two, because this is the one that cuts back and forth between two pretty much sermons, and you've got the fire and brimstone guy who's like literally like shaking the Bible and like spitting in people's faces. He's almost like he's so loud, and then cutting to this other really boring, placid. Like,
it's lukewarm. That's the thing. Yeah. It's exactly what
it's the same.
He's
but
preaching on.
But it's also a commentary on religious leaders in films. Like, this is what you get. You get the crazed lunatic one, or you get the incredibly boring, dull one. Like, there's nothing in between.
It's very rare these days that you get your on the waterfront kind of, like, one of my favorite characters is, I can't remember the name of the actor that plays him in On the Waterfront, but so the preacher character in that is one of my favorite kind of film, like, preacher type characters, because he feels real. He's just a real guy, and he's got the dog collar on, but he's very, very real. But yeah,
Yeah. I feel like
But
these two guys talk only about religion 24/7 and nothing else. Like it feels as if that's their
well,
characters. Like
yeah, well,
whereas what
actually,
you find with
I feel slightly different. I feel that Enoch is the kind of person who talks about religion 24/7
is
all the
that the
time.
screaming lunatic one? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the screaming lunatic one. And I feel like the reverend from the quiet church
Yeah.
actually talks about it as little as possible.
Well, he's busy whispering sweet nothings.
Mhm.
It'll come out later
Because
on.
if you look at how the scenes are juxtaposed, so Enoch's quoting from Revelation, and it's a very specific passage about it's better to run hot or cold than lukewarm. It's and then you cut from that to this proper lukewarm church in which the
Yeah.
preacher's just like, so who wants to read from passage 26? It's that kind of everyone just wants their brew and to get the heck out of there as soon as possible. So it's the absolute like definition of a lukewarm church. But obviously, in the case of this guy, as we find out when we get to the end, that is very purposeful. This is an infiltration of the church by the devil, who's doing everything he can to make the church lukewarm and tolerant, of everything. It seems like,
But the snake guy's far more entertaining.
yeah.
Like that must be the most unnerving like sermon ever, because like, this guy is rabid, and then just when you think it's done, it's like bring out the snakes.
Oh man, great.
Yeah.
So Enoch arrives. Enoch carries on with some theatrics while Iris puts some church flyers together. You see, I like the way they use the staple remover to look like. I've often looked at those things and thought it's just like a snake thing, isn't it? So, so glad someone else made the connection. So she's your typical kind of parish type lady who's just got to put my leaflets together and staple them, and we can pass them out on a Sunday morning. Then she gets bitten by the staple remover when it turns into a snake, and Enoch gives thanks for God destroying his enemies.
Oh God, what a great character.
Oh man, yeah. So Irish tries to clean her wound. Did I call it Irish?
Yeah.
So, I'm going to say that again anyway. Iris tries to clean her wound in the bathroom, but it is then attacked by, just loads of snakes. Yeah, they all just come out of everywhere and start attacking. So
I love how like one comes out of the sink and then 10 are just on the floor. Like just there. Don't know how they got there, they're just there.
Yeah. Okay. So the Reverend tells Mulder about his last conversation with Iris. Mulder suggests that's why she was killed. Well, of course he does, because that's exactly what the Reverend wants you to think. They talk to Gracie. She says Enoch couldn't have done this. The Reverend tells them she might be biased, because it turns out Enoch is her father. He banished them when she got pregnant. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, but basically, it's like everything is pointing to Enoch. It's like everything is suggesting that this guy is the evil kind of preacher guy.
But if you've seen anything at all in your entire life, you know it's not him.
Yeah, because it's too on the money. It's too So Mulder and Scully check the signs of God Church again. Mulder finds a wall of souls lost to us with all these photos of people. So it's a bit harsh, isn't it? They might come back one day. Just pray for them, you know.
Nope, nope, they're gone forever.
Nope, they're lost. They are lost to us. That is it. They are done. They are gone.
It's like a wall of banned people, isn't it? It's just,
Jared and Gracie are on there, along with what looks like, or what one could assume, is Gracie's mother. So Scully finds a caravan full of caged snakes.
yeah, so just before we get there, they're going back in the house to check it out, and Scully's just like, nope, you can deal with this. I'm going to go round the back where it's safer.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. Yeah. Been there. Done that. No thanks.
I'm going where there's not snakes, only to discover.
That's what she thinks. Yeah. So she finds a caravan full of caged snakes. Then Enoch literally comes up behind her, forces her down, and forces a hand into one of the cages. And he's like, you know, you must be judged and all this, you know, fire and brimstone. Let's test your righteousness and all that kind of stuff. It's very clear at this point that he believes that if you can face a snake and it doesn't bite you, then you must be righteous. Or at the very least, if it bites you and you survive, you are righteous. You know, whatever. So the degree of righteousness is determined by just how many snakes attack.
Yeah.
So thankfully Mulder comes in and stops him.
There is a great shot here, like inside the cage, where the snake is there, and Scully's pressed against it, which is really, it's like just a really kind of creepy moment, because you're like,
I gotta say, once Mulder comes in and Enoch lets Scully up, I just really wanted Scully to punch this guy. And she would have been well within her rights. Like, I just feel like the sheer adrenaline that she would have been going through.
I think they could technically have got them in endangering the life of a federal agent.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So, but they just let him go, because he's needed for the third act.
True. But yeah, I just loved her to just punch him out.
Yeah.
I just think it wouldn't feel out of place, given how het up one would be in that situation. But as soon as he lets go, she just turns around and plants him one. I'd have been well up for that. So Mulder questions him. He says Scully could have learned something if he hadn't stopped her. And Mulder's like, is that what you did to your wife? Snake bites during the church service. Enoch mocks Mulder's education, says it essentially means nothing against the devil if he's not smart in his heart.
This sequence had me killing myself with laughter, because this, which is basically like a redneck hick priest, is like teasing Mulder because he's had an education. Like he's like, I know it gets to the point where it's like, have it in your heart, but he's just like, oh, you're so smart. You've had an education. You think you know everything, little educated FBI boy. It's just like, it's such a weird thing to tease somebody about.
Like flicking his ear. But obviously, I mean, like from my perspective, at any rate, there is a lot of truth in what he's saying once he makes his final point, which is that if you're dealing with notions of evil and whatnot, you can have all the education in the world, but if you don't take it to heart, then some of the most evil men to have ever existed were also some of the most educated. So
yeah, but it feels like it's religious teachings through bullying. It really does. He's shouting at people. He's like shaking the Bible in their face. That he's teasing them and tearing them down. Like nothing he's saying is really wrong, It's just maybe find a better tact to deliver his message.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I see I see these two men
Mm.
as and again, this is what I mean about it being quite relevant, even more so today, given the political sphere, particularly in America. When you look at America and the Democrats versus the Republicans, I see this guy Enoch as being the Republican representation, and I see the other preacher from the Blessing Church, the lukewarm one. I see him as the Democrat representation. And what we've got here is we've got two sides of the same coin, where you've got the truth and grace that is the love of God, except one of these guys is all about truth and it's really damaging to a large degree, and the other guy is all about, appears at any rate to be all about grace, and as such he's letting everything into the church and tolerating everything, and values are going downhill as a result that way. So these guys are that flip side of, you know, your Republican kind of staunch, all that matters is the truth, and one side is, yeah, all that matters is grace and letting people do whatever they want. And it's, yeah, these two guys are just quite reflective, I think, of modern day American politics, and so that's why it just felt, to me, I watched this and I enjoyed it because of how much I could relate it to real world, the current here and now kind of thing. So, so outside, Gracie tells Scully that she's changed her mind. She doesn't want to see him, meaning her father. And Scully's like, you still believe he's innocent? And she says he'll be judged as he deserves, which could either sound like a threat or just simple, you know, yeah, it's in the hands of God. God will judge him, so he will be judged as he deserves. So Enoch begins praying in his cell as loads of snakes enter.
Welcome to Judgment Day.
Yeah. But I love how we cut, essentially, from him praying in his cell. It's like, well, it's not so much cut. The snakes come in and it fades to black. And then it fades back up and he's just there in a hospital bed full of snake bites.
Yeah. Just looking atrocious again. Makeup's terrific. The effects are
Yeah. I think this was a Kim Manners one, which, you know, he was known for directing all the disgusting stuff. If you see Kim Manners' name as director on an episode, it's pretty safe bet it's going to be some disgusting body horror stuff in there. So Enoch lies comatose in the hospital bed, full of bite marks, and Scully thinks it rules him out. Mulder says unless he did it to himself as a test of righteousness. In which case, I'm not quite sure he succeeded. Gracie has prevented the doctors from treating her father on religious grounds, which makes Scully think that she's a suspect. But why would she have killed the other people, is Mulder's question to that, which obviously makes sense. So they decide, finally, like, I think it's taken them way too much time, to be honest, to go and check Jared's house. So this is the guy that, you know, originally got them onto, it was his death that put them onto this case. And yet only now are they checking his house. Like, serious?
I mean, it's so far into the episode that I forgot who Jared was for a little while. You know, he looked dead. Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah. I feel like this would have been like one of the first ports of call, I should say. Yeah. Like even before turning up at the funeral at the beginning, like, maybe a search of the house would have been the first engagement. But so They search the house, and there's like, what was he scared of? Because it's various things. They debate how such a church. Oh, so this was the thing. So it wasn't in the scene before; it was in this scene. I think Mulder said something here that is actually a really good kind of debate thing. So they debate how such a church can take hold of an entire group of people. And Mulder makes a good point about rules being a good thing. Because when morality becomes all shades of grey, it becomes hard to know what truth is. Somebody offering you all the answers can be a very powerful thing, is what he says. But I love that exchange between them, and I love that that's coming from Mulder, because actually it should be a point that Scully has considered, being the person of faith. But I think there's a lot of validity in that, particularly this notion that rules are a good thing. Like, like some people say, oh, the church is just about rules and regulations, and I want to be free from that. But actually, rules and regulations help us to be free. Because, like, for an example, you have a sign on a road that says, don't go down here because you'll fall off the bridge. It ain't finished yet. That helps you to be free. It helps you to not be injured. It helps you to not have an accident. So there's, when rules are given for the right reasons, that is, it actually frees us up. That boundaries help us to be free. So moral boundaries in particular are a good example of that. So in terms of what a church might offer, in terms of why people might be attracted to such a place, even something as out there as the Signs and Wonders Church, there's a reason people kind of gravitate towards that stuff. So I think people are looking for rules. They're looking for a guide to life. Anyway, they find the medical test results. Turns out they're not Jared's medical test results. They're Grace's. Or something like that. The babies, anyway. The babies, I think. So basically, Jared ain't the father. So yeah. There we go. The Reverend sees Gracie by her father's bedside, and he tries to convince her to let the doctors work on him. She doesn't really want to, but then he kind of challenges her by saying, whose beliefs are you living? Yours or his? It's like, you came to me because you said you wanted to be free, but now you're adhering to his belief system. So whose beliefs are you living? Yours or his? The motive here, of course, being, I think, obviously once you learn who this guy truly is at the end, is that Enoch is a man who lives by faith alone. He's going to get out of this through faith. And this Reverend guy, being who he is, doesn't want him to. He'd rather actually,
medical science brings him out rather than his beliefs.
Yeah,
he's just going to make his beliefs stronger.
Yeah, if he comes out of this, it's gonna make his beliefs even stronger. So yeah. So Enoch's wounds start. So the Reverend goes off, and Grace is still stood there by the bedside, and then Enoch's wounds start leaking.
I love this because his body is expelling the venom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Great idea.
Yeah.
I just thought it was fantastic, and the way it comes out is just oozing.
It's just gross the way it's like the two holes, and it's just like yeah. That's Kim Manners for you right there. Grade A Kim Manners. And then he wakes up and grabs Gracie by the arm. So Mulder and Scully arrive to learn that he's gone, along with Gracie. Reverend tells them that Enoch was the father of her child. He also says he tried to get her to forgive him. It's like, I tried to, even though he supposedly was the father that did that to his own daughter, I tried to get her to forgive him. And, like, this is what I'm talking about. This guy is like the epitome of grace, but grace pushed to the point of actually, it's like too much. There can be too much when you allow certain, things in. So Enoch gets Gracie back to his church, and they perform an exorcism. They start.
Exorcism.
Yeah, they do a like a baptism type thing, but you put her under the water, and then they start chanting various things, and she gives birth to a beautiful baby boy.
Looks just like his dad.
Yeah. Yeah, she gives birth to snakes. A load of snakes just go, out they come, and they all just go slithering off. Great stuff. So Mulder and Scully arrive, and the police are on site. Nobody's talking. Mulder sees the blood marks and deduces, snakes, eh? So he looks over at one of the, like a couple who haven't been telling the police anything. He's like, she gave birth to snakes?
Yeah. Nobody bats an eyelid.
I know. I think they're more shocked by the fact that, this stuff, do you? So they just kind of shout back, the devil has been cast out, and Mulder leaves to look for Enoch. Enoch, as it seems, has gone to Blessing Church and tries to kill the Reverend with a knife, but Mulder stops him and shoots him in the arm.
Probably even for his head. Let's face it.
Yeah. So in the ambulance, Gracie tells Scully that her father saved her. That actually, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So the Reverend says he'll call for an ambulance. I'll just go and call for an ambulance. Say you wait here. Mulder tells Enoch help is on the way, but Enoch says no, it's not. Be smart down here, pointing to his heart. So again, he's saying, stop, forget your education, start thinking with your heart. And that's when Mulder kind of takes, I would say, a leap of faith. He's he could poo-poo that notion because I'm not a believer in that stuff. So, but he doesn't. He takes a leap of faith, and he's like, actually, he could be onto something there. So he goes and checks out the Reverend, who's in his office, starts faking a call when he sees Mulder coming in. But Mulder's not buying it, and he pulls his gun on him. And that's when the Reverend starts showing his true colours, and he's like, are you a righteous man, Agent Mulder? And the snakes appear.
Yeah, his gun turns into a snake.
Yeah.
He has to take his jacket off because he's covered in snakes.
Mm-hmm. You just start coming out of every orifice.
Yeah, pretty much. It's icky.
Yeah.
Icky and fun. Yeah.
That's when Scully arrives. She checks Enoch, and then she goes to help Mulder after Enoch tells her she can't. She's like, screw that, I can. So off she goes, starts trying to kicking the door in. Mulder gets bit while Scully is bashing the door in. She gets in eventually, finds Mulder, and sees a snake leaving out the door. So like, is this a test of Mulder's righteousness? That's the question. He got bit. And yet he survived. So are we to assume that Mulder is a righteous man? Anyway, he's in the hospital. Scully arrives. No sign of the Reverend. The devil is just some kindly man who tells you what you want to hear. But did Mulder pass the test? So that was Scully, I think, who says that. She comes in and it's like the devil, and which and there's just, I just feel like there's so much truth in that, which harkens back to the passages that Enoch was reading earlier on about it's better to be hot or cold than lukewarm, and lukewarm just tells you what you want to hear all the time, and that's the reason we have a lot of issues, I feel, in the modern church at the moment, because we just tell people what they want to hear, and we try and be all tolerant of everything, and the truth kind of takes a back seat for the sake of tolerance. And yeah, so we get one last scene, which it's a bit iffy in the special effects department. It's got to be said. I'd have preferred it if it had just dropped the mouse.
Ate the mouse yourself.
Yeah, just like a bit. Yeah,
I was going to.
There's a bit of the teacher from Die Hand die Verletzt vibe about the guy at the end when he's sat behind the desk, and yeah, it just feels like it could have been like another version of that character. So, but yeah, Reverend Wells, as he's now calling himself, gets a job at a new church, then eats a mouse. But he doesn't really eat the mouse. A snake comes out of his mouth and then eats the mouse. But it kind of looks a bit very like bad 90s CGI type stuff. It's not the best way to go out of the episode. It's a bit, oh, okay, you did that.
I like it. Like, honestly, like, listening to you talk and bringing like the heavy religion into it makes me want to give it a 2. It really does. Like, I'm like, keep that away from me. That's tedious and really boring. I don't want to hear that. It's like, I want the snakes. I want all that kind of stuff. I want to see this guy screaming and shouting with his Bible in his hand, berating folk. I want to see the dichotomy between his way of delivering religion and the other guy who is just out for corruption and the way he delivers it. I like that. I love the way it ekes into the kind of horror elements with the snakes in the car, with Scully and getting her face pushed into the cage with the snakes, and even the scene of like Mulder just taking his jacket off and he's drenched in these snakes things. It's just like, I like this episode for the genre sensibilities of it. I can see thematics in there, and I agree with some of them. But for me, I had fun watching this one. It kind of put my hackles up a little bit when you see the snakes crawling about. Lots of people are picked off, and it's a nice little mystery at the heart of it as well. So I like this. I like this like a lot more than, say, Orison that we had in this season as well. Like, for me, just now, it's in the top half of episodes that I've seen and enjoyed. So I'm sticking with the 4 out of 5.
Sticking with the 4. I think I'm gonna go with a 3.5. I think to suggest that this is 208 out of the 217 episodes is ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous. I'm sorry, that is just bonkers. I wouldn't put it anywhere near the top, like 3rd, but it's in that mid range of solid X-Files episodes that's got some good icky stuff in there. It's got some good stuff to say that for the most part I can get on board with, and as a person of faith, I like what it's tackling and how it's tackling it. It's solid. It's solid stuff. Yeah. Once again, it's the Tesso dos Bichos effect. There's no way this is as bad as it appears.
But there is a thought in the back of my head going, did I like this as much as I did because I was going into this preparing to hate it? Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you get that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, tell me a little bit about Sein und Sied.
Sein und Sied is the first part of the 2-part episode that finally wraps up the Samantha stuff. Now, here's the thing.
Hmm?
I I've got a feeling you'll like it because it's not it's not at all what you're going to expect. It doesn't play like a typical mythology episode. It's like, and certainly the first part it feels like a standalone episode, to be honest. Um, but yeah, it takes more of a, shall we say, like, not necessarily Silence of the Lambs, but like a, what was that film with Brian Dennehy with the about John Gacy? It was like To Catch a Killer, like that kind of thing.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I think what's given me pause for thought more than anything is the fact that it's a mythology episode, and I feel that the last mythology episodes that we got weren't
mm,
good, weren't good at all. And I feel
no,
like
no,
when you had mythology episodes in the first 4 seasons or whatever, they were
yeah,
all really strong and really
yeah,
good, mostly. But I
mm,
feel as if we're kind of dropping the ball with these mythology ones as we go on.
mm,
So, you know,
yeah,
I'm cautious when it comes to that.
yeah. Uh,
But you
I've
think it's
I've
going to be a
all
good one? You think this is a good two-parter? Is it a two-parter? Do
I
you say?
I've always been favourable to it.
Mm,
I think people are either for or against. Like, I don't see a lot of midway for it when I hear people talking about it. It tends to be like, how that was just the worst way to wrap up the Samantha storyline, and then others saying, oh, that was such a surprising way, and because of that, it was a great way to wrap up the Samantha storyline. And I tend to sit more in that camp with it.
Do you think the viewer base at the time when this came out in 2000, do you think the viewer base for X Files had changed? Do you think people had
Uh
fallen away from it? New people had come in. What do you think was going on at the time?
Possibly. I mean, like, I was a diehard. I've been there since the beginning. I'm gonna be there to the end. Every time, it comes back,
Hmm.
I'm there. So, how much of that fan base, that diehard fan base like me, actually dropped away?
Yeah.
I honestly couldn't tell you.
Or do you think that they became jaded at this point? Were they getting a little
The
bit tired?
fans.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think so. I mean, I felt that in myself
Hmm.
during season 7. I got slightly reinvigorated as a fan in season 8
Hmm.
when Doggett came into it. Um, like that waned considerably in season 9, but it's certainly in season 8. I was kind of back on board. Season 7, I was kind of sliding a bit. I was like, I feel like, I don't know. Although, having watched them so far for this,
Hmm.
yes, we've had a couple of stinkers, but I've actually been
Yeah,
pleasantly
well,
surprised for the most part.
yeah, but where were the stinkers? The first 2 episodes,
Yeah, the
and then
mythology.
after that, they've been middling to fair. Is that a
Well,
fair
I'd say
assumption?
middling to pretty great, to be honest. Because, like, I mean, you gave Amazing Malini 5 stars, so that
Yeah.
was a pretty
And
great episode.
Millennium, I gave Millennium
And
5 stars as
Millennium,
well.
I
I
gave
really
Orison a
enjoyed the
5.
Goldberg variation.
Yeah, yeah, I think I gave that a 5 or a 4.5 or something. I rated that one pretty high.
Signs and Wonders was good. So going into this season, I think it's like those first 2 episodes have tarred this season. Like they
yeah,
really have. They've made a
yeah, yeah,
statement, and the statement is this is not good.
yeah,
But what has come after it has been fine to really good.
yeah,
Yeah, but it's
yeah,
still got that stink on it from the first 2 episodes.
yeah, yeah. It's the mythology that's the problem, I
Yeah.
think, at this point. Although, having said that, like I say, we've still got 2 standalone episodes that are in those bottom 3.
Yeah. And I think one of them you told me about is Rotten. Is it like a game one or a gamer or a first person shooter or
Yes,
something? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
yeah.
I expect that to be low, low, low.
It does have its fans, but I ain't one of them. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. Did it
So,
did it inspire Gamer? Do you think?
it certainly came before Gamer. So I'm not sure
Not
it
that bad, just
inspired much of anything.
yeah. Okay, so there we have it. As always, we'd love to know your thoughts on Signs and Wonders. What did you think? Let us know in comments or post something on our podcast. There is polls on there as well. Maybe we'll throw one up to see whether you thought it was a great episode or a not so great. Don't forget to like on whatever podcast service or on YouTube, because it really helps other people to discover our love for the X-Files. And we'll see you next week for Sein und Zeit. Is it? Sein?
Sein und Zeit. Sein
Yeah.
und Zeit.
And you get extra points if you know what that means, Brian.
I don't.
We'll figure it out for next episode, folks. I'll see you then.